Hello and welcome back to Giving Automotive, day 2 on Nick's truck. Yesterday we did some major repairs. We got the majority of the engine back together. If you want to get caught up on that, there's a card above my head. I'll link it up. So on today's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to do some final touches on the engine, putting a few vacuum lines back together, and then we're going to do some maintenance stuff such as a serpentine belt, an oil change, a fuel filter, and then after that, hopefully the battery will be charged enough, and we're gonna start her up and see how she sounds and how she runs. We do have one little hiccup. We don't know where the keys are, so we got to find the keys. So stay tuned for that. So while Nick is in Afghanistan fighting for our country, we're at home putting his truck back together and getting it ready for him. In the first episode, we put the engine assembly back together. We got the intake back on. We got all the brackets back on. We had the challenge of finding all the fasteners because we didn't take any of this apart. Just before Nick was signed up for the military, he took this apart and he was working on getting it back together and getting it smogged. And then he got deployed to Afghanistan, and now the truck is just sitting here. So episode 1 was just about getting the engine back together. Today's episode is going to be about doing a little bit of maintenance on it. And then after we get done with that, we're going to fire it off and see if it runs and see if there's any additional problems. So we got the battery on a little charger here. This battery is completely dead, so I'm hoping it'll charge it. And then what we need to do is we need to put the air cleaner assembly back together. We need to clean the air filter here. And then once we get the air filter cleaned up, then we've got a couple vacuum lines here that I need to figure out where they go. I got one that kind of not sure where it goes yet, so I need to track that down and figure out where that goes. After that, we're going to locate the key, and then we're going to change the belt out also and change the fuel filter, change the oil on this car, like I was saying earlier. And then we're going to give it a fire off and see what she sounds like. Hopefully everything goes good. Then if that goes well, then the plan is to roll the car out in the driveway, maybe give it a good wash, vacuum it out, and see if we can do a little detailing on the inside here. We'll see how everything goes. So yesterday I went ahead and put the belt back on, but I'm going to take it back off because if you notice down there, it's pretty cracked up, not in the best shape. So I'm going to get started by torquing the tensioner over and taking the belt back off. There's a cool diagram right here on the truck. These old trucks had really good diagrams for the belts, and they also had really good diagrams for their vacuum lines and stuff like that. It was really handy, especially if you're not familiar with these vehicles. So the plan for Giving Automotive is to have sponsors pay for all the repairs and all the parts for this. Right now, until we get those sponsors lined up, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. So I went to the O'Reilly's, we picked up the motor oil, we picked up a new belt. We also got a fuel filter. Because we don't know the condition of the engine, if it even runs at all, or if it has a rod knock or anything like that, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of money on the parts until I get it fired off. Once I got it fired off and I'm satisfied that it's in good shape, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put a full tune-up on it, spark plugs, wires, cap, rotor, all that stuff. We'll also dig into the brake system, make sure that's all good. We want to make sure it runs first. So now we're going to work on getting the brand new serpentine belt on. What we're going to do is we're going to route it around the crank pulley first, and then around the water pump, and then around the AC compressor, power steering, and just keep routing it around. So basically, what I'm going to do is create a loop like this, and I'm going to put this down here around the crank pulley first. So I'll feed it down here, put it around the crank pulley, and then I'll come up and over the water pump, and then we'll go around the AC and up and over. So I wrapped it around the crank pulley. Now it's come up and over. Now it's going to go around the AC compressor, over the power steering pump. It's going to go under the tensioner pulley. Now we're going to pull the slack out. So now all we have to do is torque the tensioner over, slip the belt. Now we're going to change the oil on the vehicle. We're going to get the oil cap off here. When you remove the oil cap, it helps it drain out faster. So it's a pretty tight fit under here. Right now what I'm doing is getting the oil draining. I got a 5/8 wrench here. I'm cracking the drain plug loose. We're going to get it draining. Luckily for me, the drain plug has a pretty decent washer on it, and it wasn't leaking or anything, so we're going to reuse it because I don't have one to replace it with. As you can see here, the oil is pretty dark. Luckily there was no metallic metal flakes or anything in the oil. It looked pretty good. Now on the driver's side of the engine is where the oil filter is. We're going to go ahead and spin this off and change this out. The oil filter I did not buy. Nick has about 7 of these things laying in the front seat, so we're going to go ahead and use one of his brand new filters here and screw it on. It's a Bosch filter, which Bosch makes quality parts. Before screwing this on, I smeared a little bit of oil on the seal here. If you don't do that, the next time you got to change it, it's like impossible to get it off. So after tightening on the oil filter, I'm going to go ahead and, since we're under here, we're going to change out the fuel filter, which is right here behind the fuel tank here. There's not enough room for me to film and take this out, but I went ahead and changed this fuel filter out. Now back up top, we're going to fill it with some fresh motor oil. I'm using some Pennzoil here. This is 10W30. We're going to fill it up with about 6 quarts of oil. So after topping off the motor oil, I was about to put the air cleaner assembly on, and I noticed that the PCV here is in the wrong position. The vent on the air cleaner goes in the front here, so the PCV valve must go on the back of the valve cover. So what I had to do is pull it through. Here I had to take the valve off, pull it through, and then hook it up. Now I can put the air cleaner assembly on. So the battery charger that we're using will not turn on unless there's a couple volts on the battery, and this battery is 100% dead, so we had to get another vehicle in here and use some jumper cables. And with the engine running here, we're charging up the battery with the donor card here, trying to get a couple volts in here so we can get our charger to even turn on. Okay, now that the battery is connected and charged up, it's time to start the engine and see if it runs. So my daughter is filming right here, and I had her go up front to check out the engine, and as she walked around there was a big blast of dirt and debris and dust from the engines being sitting there. So if you look right here, you can actually see the dirt and dust flying off the engine, off the belts and the fans and everything. It's just... So the engine sounds pretty good overall. It does have a slight little exhaust leak, and also when it first fired off, it had a slight little misfire, but the longer it runs, it seems to be clearing up. So unfortunately, this vehicle had a full tank of gas when it was torn apart a couple years ago. It doesn't have a bad odor with the engine running or anything, so I'm not 100% sure if the fuel is bad, but we're going to need to take a sample. That could be contributing to that little misfire. So I'm super pumped that the engine sounds good, so we're going to go ahead with that tune-up stuff and continue with the job. So if any of you are wondering how you can help, right now the best way you can help is by watching the video, sharing the video, and putting the thumbs ups and likes. That way we get as much attention on the videos so we can attract sponsors. So after running for about 10 minutes here, I went to check the check engine light to see if there's anything on there, and so far so good, no check engine light. Alright, so we ran into some challenges. One with the battery. The battery, it just would not charge, so we're probably going to have to get a new battery. But I'm going to take it to work, charge it up, see if I can get it to hold a charge and test it there. Also, the battery terminal broke on us, and then after we got it running there, if you didn't notice, it had an exhaust leak. So we're going to figure out where that exhaust leak is, and then do some fine tuning. I'll probably change the spark plugs on it. It had a little misfire, but it did smooth out after it ran for a while. So those will be the next step, and after that we're going to get the interior all dialed in. And after we get the interior all dialed in, we're going to wash it up, and we're going to reveal it back to him. We're not sure exactly when he comes home yet, so the reveal may be a whiles away. I'm Brian Esser from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, encourage you to subscribe, invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again for watching.